Time now, though, to speak to the Conservatives. I'm joined this morning by Shadow Home Office Minister and Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers. Very good morning to you. Thanks for talking to us.
Good morning.
Let's start, shall we, with the issue of the Court of Appeal ruling later on today regarding the Bell Hotel and whether or not asylum seekers should be asked to move out. You want the hotel to be closed. But in that instance, what do you think should happen to the asylum seekers?
Well, we've heard about the allegations of what went on there. Those protesters are right. They're concerned about their communities. They're right to stand up for this and make some noise. The councillors, the Conservative councillors in that part of the world who were on their side, who took this forwards to the court and got that injunction, were entirely right to do so. The reality is that the last government was reducing the number of people in hotels. It fell by nearly 47%. They were looking at disused army barracks. They were looking at things like the Bibby Stockholm, looking at alternatives to these hotels, and it reduced by 47%. The number is now going up. It can't go on. We've got to find alternative accommodation for these people. But the reality is we need to start sending them back. If you come to this country illegally, you cannot be allowed to stay. These people will continue to arrive in ever-increasing numbers as long as that message is sent to them. We've got to start sending people back. The number will come down. And the reality is that the government has even said that they think that the rights of these illegal immigrants, of these people who broke into the country, should trump those law-abiding residents in Epping. We can't go on like this. It's not acceptable.
You say that numbers were coming down of asylum seekers being housed in hotels under the Conservatives, but it was the Tories that introduced the policy of putting asylum seekers in hotels. And at their peak, there were many more housed that way under the Tories than there are now. I mean, presumably that was because there weren't any alternatives then. So what about now? What are the alternatives right now? I mean, you say you were looking at the Bibby Stockholm and instances like that, but right now, where would the asylum seekers go in a few weeks' time should the Bell Hotel stay closed?
Numbers were coming down. They had come down by 47%.
But they peaked under the Tories, didn't they?
Yeah, but they'd reduced the number of people staying in hotels. If that strategy had been maintained, if this government had carried on in the ilk of the last government, we wouldn't have any of these hotels now. These people would all be put in alternative accommodation. But more importantly, if the government had not on day one cancelled the deterrent, then people, the number of people arriving in the country. The one thing that Starmer's done, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. In opposition, Starmer voted against every single measure brought forward to toughen up our immigration system. Keir Starmer campaigned against the deportation of foreign criminals. Since he's come into office, he's changed the law. It's now, as a result of this government's actions, is now possible for somebody who comes here illegally to become a British citizen. What message does that send to people who are considering coming to this country? The reality is, until we start removing people, sending them to wherever they came from, and are not allowing them to stay, this problem will continue. We've got a deportation.
Okay, but can I just ask you once more, what should happen to those asylum seekers who are currently in the Bell Hotel if that hotel were to close? Where would you like to see them go?
We should continue to do what the previous government were doing when they brought...
I mean, the immediate issue, in a few weeks' time, should the hotel close?
In army barracks, disused army barracks, in things like the Bibby Stockholm. Kemia said we should be looking at camps. We should be looking at camps today. We should be finding that alternative accommodation and getting these people out of town centre. That town centre accommodation, as we've seen in Epping, has got people terrified. They've heard about what's allegedly gone on there. People scared for women and children making their own way around their local communities. They're scared for the pressure on local health services, on all of those public services, on local taxpayers, and more importantly also on the local economy. I went to Altrincham, where a 300-place hotel has been taken out of circulation to house illegal migrants. The end result is that 300 people who would normally have turned up there as tourists, spent money in local pubs, in local restaurants and local shops, are no longer there. This is impacting on every part of those local communities. It can't be allowed to go on. These people firstly need putting in alternative accommodation, like camps. But more importantly, we need to start deporting them. We need to send a clear message that if you come to Britain, if you break into this country, you won't be allowed to stay.
I want to ask you about another issue and the announcement by the government today that they're rolling out a chickenpox vaccination programme next year for children at 12 months and then 18 months. Do you welcome it?
We would welcome vaccinations, we welcome greater access to vaccination, but one of the problems is our GPs are a huge part of our NHS. They're incredibly important, but we're placing greater burdens and pressure on them. We need to look again. The last government brought out Pharmacy First, which meant that we could alleviate some of that pressure on GPs so they could continue to do the great work they do. So, of course, we're delighted to see greater access to these vaccines, but we do need the government to start looking at the pressure they're placing on GPs across this country so that they can continue to do the great work that they do.
And the jab is going to be combined with the MMR vaccine, but that is seeing its lowest level of uptake for 15 years. It's a big challenge, isn't it, for the NHS to encourage people to go out and get their children vaccinated in higher numbers. How would you go about it?
I think we need to continue to educate people, give them the information about what these vaccines can do in terms of benefiting their children's lives. We need to give greater access. It's right to do it and get it out there into communities so people can get at it as easily as possible. And, we welcome that as a move forwards.
And there's been a rise in vaccine hesitancy since the COVID pandemic. Why do you think that is?
Well, of course, the vaccine, there's been lots of conspiracy theories, lots of debate online, on Twitter, lots of misinformation, actually, about the consequences. We need to look at anything that might go wrong with the vaccine properly. But the reality is that the UK has a very, very robust testing system. The MHRA is probably one of the most robust systems in the world for checking any consequences or side effects that these vaccinations can have. We need to make sure that people are convinced of the safety of them, roll them out and get people the vaccinations that can make their lives better and protect the children from some of these horrific issues.
Matt Vickers, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.